Well, once again, the Mandalorian still falls short for another week.
Well, I guess you won fair and square.
And this episode was something else entirely. I'm struggling to formulate the right words to describe how I feel about such a well-written, acted, and executed episode as this.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Before I go into my breakdown and review of this week's installment, however, I will urge you to go out of your way to check out this episode before you come back and hear my thoughts. This, as usual, will be a spoiler review, so I don't feel I need to clarify it, but I probably should, so just be sure before you continue watching this.
You're goddamn right.
We begin on the clone base on Coruscant, where we see Crosshair bearing witness to the clones officially being retired in passing by Captain Bragg. Crosshair is quickly introduced to his new commander, Lieutenant Nolan, who despises the clones and makes no secret about it.
You dick!
Labeling them as used goods, and informs Crosshair that they're going to Barton 4 to stop insurgents. When they arrive on the snow-covered wasteland, they are greeted by the actual commander, Mayday, and some of his men named Veach and Hex, who inform him that they don't possess the resources to maintain what they're doing long term. As Nolan gets acclimated to his new surroundings, Mayday gets to know Crosshair, who becomes aware of the conditions that they've been left in and what's expected of them. The base is quickly attacked by insurgents not long after, and Crosshair almost becomes blinded after taking a shot but seeing an explosion through his scope, but manages to shoot one of the insurgents on his way out, who leaves a blurred trail to lead them back to their base.
A worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
While Mayday and Crosshair try to collect themselves for a second, having basically no troops left after that assault, Nolan forces them back out into the cold to locate the missing cargo and bring it back.
Wow, cool! Wait a minute! The fuck?
They do just that after an excellent moment in the caverns on the planet as Mayday saves Crosshair from blowing up. They manage to find the insurgents in the cliffs and make short work of them. Once they realise the cargo was just armour for the TK troopers that are steadily on their way, an avalanche pursues them down the mountain, with Mayday pushing Crosshair out of danger but gets crushed against a rock from the snow.
Bullshit!
Crosshair manages to dig himself out, gets Mayday, and they limp back to base. Once they make it there by daybreak, Nolan accosts them for not returning the lost cargo despite Crosshair's pleas for help as Mayday slips away.
Piece of shit!
Nolan doesn't care for this, openly admitting his death meant no more than his life, and as he walks away, Crosshair hits the breaking point, turning a gun on him and pulls the trigger.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Severing his ties to the Empire once and for all.
Thank the Maker.
As Crosshair succumbs to his own injuries and passes out, he wakes up in a lab where he's injected and put back to sleep. This episode was otherworldly and proves why Crosshair is the most fascinating part of the story right now and the biggest link between everything. The emotional depth, gravitas, and anger-inducing moments throughout this puts it immediately in my top 5, right alongside the solitary clone of this season as well. It's amazing to think that the two critically acclaimed episodes of the season are both heavily featured with Crosshair. The desperate and isolated nature to this installment is far beyond what I thought this show could achieve, as we are witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of a new. To begin with Captain Bragg just retiring the clones with no ceremony or sign of respect, and dismissing their grievances would imply that Chuchi, for a start, is struggling to create a sustainable future for them in the Senate, despite having Rampart removed. Then, to conclude on Mayday's death in this episode on a barren wasteland being stalked by a vulture provides a visual representation of the Empire's intentions, and that's to pick the clones clean of their energy, resourcefulness, and lives to fortify their own. Nolan is an extreme case of bigotry from them, but if this is the sentiment shared among many of the Imperial officers, this is no longer a safe place for any clone, and if Echo and Rex are going to make any headway in this revolution, they need to kick it into another gear. Especially now with Crosshair firing the first shot in this conflict, as we've seen the steady dissolution between the former Republic soldiers and the now burgeoning new Empire. Before I round off how I feel about the rest of this episode, I do have a quick question for you to wonder on though. And that is, when does this episode take place in the current timeline? I'm curious to know because I think we're starting to converge all paths to possibly one location and one end, and that will possibly include a lot of the tools and environments we've seen introduced throughout the season. At the end of episode 3, titled The Solitary Clone, Crosshair was instructed to report to his new commander, and here he's shown to be being introduced to said commander. Then, by the looks of the lab at the end, and this is my best guess, he is on Tantis as well, which could align his movements alongside the Zillo Beast and Dr. Hemlock's arrivals. Now, with Scorch also trying to locate the batch, and the link to getting Nalase moving is Omega, so you undoubtedly know that Omega is going to wind up there too. I would assume that all paths are leading to Tantis, and we're going to wind up seeing Crosshair reunite with them, maybe some of the former connections that have been made throughout the show be brought back, and just for good measure throw in a bit of chaos to the wind with the Zillo Beast being unlocked for some chaos. These are just my speculations though, but I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Moving forward though to my last points, we start with the latest clone of the week in Mayday, a rather dishevelled and ambivalent trooper that has grown tired of the bullshit and keeps going out of complacency, fully aware of his situation and what it means to be a soldier now, when they're being discarded and left literally in the cold. I love this particular character, and he bounced off of Crosshair perfectly, and felt almost akin to Hunter in some of his more blatant movements, like defusing the bomb, and even breaks through to Crosshair by asking for his name, reminding him that he's a living being, and not allowing Crosshair to give into his programming and expectations of the Empire, that don't possess any respect for the army that cemented their position in the galaxy. Go back to Crosshair earlier in the episode as well, mentioning the dead insurgent back in the caves as being dead weight to his men most likely, and Mayday saying that he hopes not to die on his watch, fearing that he'll just be left behind as well, only for the episode to close on Crosshair carrying the dead weight in Mayday back with him. This was the progression that we undoubtedly have been waiting for Crosshair. He's starting to show genuine concern for his fellow brothers and feels the weight and brevity of the situation around him, and is starting to realise the true extent of what Hunter meant in Season 1's finale. He's just another number to them, with the point admittedly being hammered home with Nolan, but for it to come to this, with again, literal vultures in the sky ready to pick off the bones of the Republic just as the Empire are, makes this one of the most profound, bleak, and chilling moments in the entire show's run. He's being confronted with his own mortality at the core level, where before it was just an order or a regime that he would give his life for. Now it's literally about his own existence and the value that that possesses. And all thanks to Mayday and Cody reminding him of who he actually is and what he can do for everyone else around him. I adored the voice work from D. Bradley Baker in this one as well. He delivers an incredible performance with the jaded Mayday, but the execution of Crosshair was perfect. The genuine, raw, gruff pitch that he puts into Crosshair's voice as he's confronting Nolan by the end, alongside the excellent animation and the backdrop, made for a truly cinematic moment from a show that many dismissed, claiming it to just be filler.
You fool.
I struggle with rating anything on a scale a lot of the time, but if I had to play this sensibly, I would put this a solid 10 out of 10. The plot plays secondary to Crosshair, but the focus is drawn quite possibly to the clones for the final time, and rightfully so. I love where the series is heading, and the clone uprising has to be on its way for sure, and if not, it's gotta come down to the Batchers once more, and we'll lose one of our crew most likely in this fight, but it will be for a greater cause overall. Anyway, that's all I've got for this week's episode. I appreciate you stopping by. If you like this, hit the thumbs up and make sure to subscribe as I round out the rest of the season. And until next time though folks, take care and may the Force be with you.